Good morning. Good morning. Hello. I'm going to give it a second. I just turned on my laptop to check the time and it said 11 minutes past 9 and I thought, oh good, got 4 minutes, just doing a few emails, and then it turned out my laptop hadn't refreshed. So yeah, just kind of suddenly jumped on, was like, right, need to get on quickly. Okay. Good morning anybody that's joining. If you are watching this live, just give me a little thumbs up or say hello, let me know who you are, where you're joining from. Okay, hi, I can see people are joining now, great. So the usual setup for live sessions. I haven't done so many in this group. This is going to be where I do all of the live sessions from now on, all of the kind of live workshops and kind of going on your feedback, you know, what do you need, what do you want, what is not working for you at the moment, what you're struggling with. Tell me those things, tell me in the group, and I can give you some answers here and give you some feedback and give you some direction in this group. So usual situation, if you are watching live, let me know who you are, where you're from, what you're up to today, what your day's looking like, and if you're watching on a replay, just pop replay in the comments, just so I know going forwards that these are useful. Give me a little bit of feedback if anything's resonated with you or is useful for you, let me know. Okay, so I'm going to get going. Today's session is around finding the lower abdominals. So this is a part of the core. I refer to the core as this kind of corset effect that goes around your midriff, around your midsection. The core is made up of a few different muscles, about 6 different muscles. Most of them are impacted by your breath. So if you have injuries, things like that, where your breathing is affected, usually, so if say for example you have a shoulder injury, that can really impact on your ability to kind of open through your chest. So that can really impact on your ability to breathe efficiently, which can really impact on your ability to effectively engage your core muscles. The opposite is also true. So if you are struggling to engage your core muscles and you're not breathing efficiently, it's kind of a vicious cycle. You're not going to get the connection unless you can work both. You need to be able to engage core but also breathe really well. So there's a few things that we're going to talk about today. There's a few reasons why this is really relevant to most of you watching. In midlife, you probably know this, but your muscle mass decreases rapidly from about 40. It's like 1% a year. It's massive. So unless you are actively increasing that muscle mass through bodyweight exercises, strength building exercises, you are going to get to a point where your muscle mass is low, and that can be really detrimental for a few reasons. It can really affect your bone health. It can affect your energy levels. It can drastically affect your metabolism. So strength building is really important. And the reason why that's relevant for this is that if we're working lower abdominals, they're very, very closely linked to pelvic floor, for example. So often in midlife, women experience changes to their pelvic floor. That can be hormonally affected as well, but it can also be because of muscle mass and muscle control. So engaging the lower abdominals is important for that reason, it's one of the reasons. Pelvic floor is important, and if you can connect into your lower abdominals, you'll much more easily connect into your pelvic floor. Your lower abdominals are also really important for pelvic lumbar stability. So if you struggle with back pain, if you struggle with hip pain, if you struggle with pelvic girdle pain, all of those things can be really, really improved by engaging your lower abdominals. So they form this sort of lower part of your core, which physically stabilizes your pelvis, which means that your lower back is going to be much more stable and protected and safe. So very often strengthening core and particularly lower abdominals can have really dramatic effects and benefits to lower back pain. It also can have a big benefit on things like shoulder issues. So I see ladies, we've talked about this in the membership, I'm putting my hair out of the way so you can see my shoulders. I see ladies all the time with shoulders that are unstable and that are rising and falling, and you're putting a lot of tension into your shoulders, a lot of tension into your neck. And a big part of that is habitual. It can be things like spending a lot of time at a laptop, computer, tightening up mobile phones, tightening up through here, rising up through your scapula. And that posture creates a lot of laziness here. It also perpetuates this problem that we were saying at the beginning about the breathing. If you are forwards here, you are kind of missing this whole section of lung capacity. So your breath isn't efficient. You're not able to efficiently fill your lungs. And if you can't efficiently fill your lungs, you can't efficiently engage through your core. So it's kind of again, a vicious cycle. But also what I find is that when people struggle to engage their lower abdominals, their go-to is very often shoulders. A client of mine described it to me a few years ago as a coat hanger effect. She felt like she had a coat hanger here and it was literally holding her up. It was doing what this should be doing. And because this wasn't working well, these were overworking. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle, because switching this on can be really tricky, because automatically if you're shoulder and neck dominant, this likes to get involved. So I'm going to show you a few things today. We're going to get going. If you want to lie down on your mat, I'm just going to get rid of my jumper so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to show you a few things today that's going to, a few kind of techniques to help you to find the lower abdominals and really efficiently and effectively switch them on. So lie down on your backs, make yourselves quite comfy, and I'm just going to talk you through some of the breath cycles that I like to use to really find this area. Now, the first thing we're going to do is, if you place your legs parallel, roughly hip width, and you have your weight on your tailbone, you want to have your hips, your hip bones and your pubic bone pretty much on a level plane, and you can play with that. Just tip forwards and backwards a few times. You'll find that if you're too far tipped into the lower back, you'll be imprinted to the ground, and if you're too far tipped forwards, your lower ribs will be off the floor. So you want to have your back of your rib cage ideally attached to the floor. You want ideally a little arch, and that will be dependent on your body proportions and your spinal curves as to how big that arch is, but you should have a little bit of a space underneath your lower back. And then this level plane here between hip bones and pubic bones. So your hands just lie fairly flat there. And you'll be weighted on your tailbone. And that's really important to get the muscles in the most effective position. So they're all in their kind of neutral, relaxed shape, but they have the opportunity to shorten and lengthen in the most effective way. Then we're going to think of these shoulders, and we're just going to try and relax the upper arms onto the floor. But I'd like you to have your hands on the space between your two hip bones. So this kind of soft bit of belly, a few inches below your waistband, below your belly button, and maybe an inch above your pubic bone, somewhere around this space, this front section of your pelvis. And you're going to just dig your fingers in there, making sure here that as you dig around, that your shoulders stay relaxed. You want to just keep checking in there. And the thing with all of these exercises and all of these techniques is you've got to keep checking back. Keep referring back to the shoulders. Don't feel like you've done it once, you're set. You've got to keep organising and keep reorganising, because these dominant areas are dominant and they will try and find their habitual roles. So we have to take those out of the equation manually. So have a dig around with your fingers, and the reason why we're doing this is I want you to feel the softness. I want you to completely relax there and feel that it's quite soft. But equally, by pressing your fingers into this area, and this works in other areas of the body too, by having a bit of a press around and a bit of a dig around, you kind of wake up the nerves in that area. So you start to feel the part of the body that we're trying to target. And I think the thing that people struggle with these lower abdominals is they've either been lazy, or they've been cut in half through surgery or C-sections. They've been stretched through pregnancy, but 9 times out of 10 for most of us, they just aren't pulling their weight. So it's quite hard to get them to switch back on again. So having a dig around here is telling them you're manually switching on that brain-body connection that's saying, right, you're the bit, you are the section that I'm trying to work, this is where I want to feel it. So now hold there and just have your fingers kind of quite hard pressed down into that, that area of skin, of flesh. Again, check in with those shoulders, and then we're just going to take some big breaths. So inhaling, nothing's going to happen. And on your exhale, I want you to get as far through that out breath as you can. Get almost right to the end of that out breath. And what you should feel is under your fingers, just a sense of tightening, a sense of engagement, a hardening of the area. And it can be low down. Don't feel like it's going to be the fleshy part. It can be quite low down. You might have to dig around to find it. But you should find that there's a strengthening, a tightening, a resistance building beneath your fingers. And then on your inhale, you can let that relax completely. And we're just going to do that a couple more times. And I want you to really practice getting to the end of that out breath and only feeling the effort in the bit below your fingers. And that again might mean that you need to manually switch off your shoulders. Okay. So a couple more times like that in your own time, and you can keep going with those. Now I want you to think of your breath on your inhale. So you're going to think about breathing less into the top of the chest. In fact, I'd like a small amount of movement in your sternum as possible. And I'd like you to try and breathe into the mat or even into your armpits. Feel like you're taking that breath wide and deep into the ribs, into the floor, into the mat. So that's your inhale, and your exhale is to find that slight resistance, slight connection. It's just a slight tightening. So now we combine the two. So you exhale and you find that connection, you find those muscles. Get to the end of that out breath. When you've got that resistance and you found it, take that inhale breath, but try and hold the resistance in the tummy. Allow your breath to move into the back of the ribs. And then on your exhale, when that comes again, you just deepen that connection again. Your ribs soften down. You hold the connection beneath your fingers. You keep digging those fingers in. And then you hold that. You feel like that muscle is pulling away from your fingers as you take your inhale breath. Now keep going with that, holding the resistance in the belly whilst you take the inhale breath, and then deepening the resistance when you take your exhale breath. Now what I'd like you to take note of is that whereas before it was quite hard to maintain the position of the rib cage, you really want to breathe into the top of the ribs. When you've got your abdominals switched on, like this, the lower abdominals, it's much easier to breathe deeper into the back of the ribs and into the side of the ribs. So what you're creating is, by engaging the abdominals, you're creating a much more efficient use of your lungs, your lung capacity. You're able to breathe into the back of the ribs, the side of the ribs, and the front of the ribs. But you're not really causing, your breath isn't causing a huge disturbance to the body. You're not having to move your spine just to get an inhale breath. You're able to maintain stability in the lower abdominals, and that helps you to increase your lung capacity in the thorax. So keep going with those. Keep going with that feeling of breathing into the back of the ribs and holding and maintaining this belly connection. But now we're going to add in a little bit of movement. So we're going to just hover your left foot off the floor, like an inch, not too high. Now on your next exhale, when that comes, you're going to reach that leg away. Keep it just off the ground, but slide it away. Now, when you reach full extension, hold it there. Take the inhale breath and hold that connection in the belly. Keep pulling away from the fingers. And then your next exhale draws that leg back in. You stabilize that pelvis and you place the foot back down to the floor. Take an inhale breath. Remember, we're breathing deep. We're keeping the connections in the tummy. The right leg comes up. We slide it away on the exhale. So we deepen the belly connection as we lengthen that leg. We inhale and we hold the connection in the tummy and we breathe deeply into the mat. And then we exhale, pulling back in, deepening that belly connection, deepening that resistance beneath the fingers, and we inhale to lower the leg down. Now you're going to keep going like this. So your exhale is for your movement, your inhale is to hold each end. Now there's one thing I want you to just be really mindful of here, is that as you're moving that leg away, you're adding a load, you're adding a long lever which is heavy on the pelvis. It's going to want to take your spine with it. It's going to want to create this arching. Your job is to not only keep the connections in the belly, but also stabilize and make sure that that pelvis is completely still because of the connection in the belly. So as that leg reaches away, don't let the pelvis tip. Don't let it pull forwards. Keep that level plane between hip bones and pubic bone. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Focus on the breath and focus on the deep connection of the belly. Pause here. Now, your next effort, we're going to take a leg and just draw it up to tabletop. So, exhale to pull up, inhale, hold. Exhale to release back down. Now you've got to keep or try to keep your weight evenly distributed across the back of the pelvis. Exhale, pull up. Inhale, hold. And exhale down. Now these aren't, we're not rolling out 1,000 crunches to create abdominal connection. Keep going with these, by the way. We're working on finding and maintaining deep abdominal connection to maintain stability, to maintain control, to help to release the shoulders, to help to increase the lung capacity. 2, if you want to think aesthetically, to flatten the abdominal wall. And if we're thinking about flattening the abdominal wall, one thing you need to be mindful of here is that as you float the leg up, that tension underneath your fingers isn't pushing upwards. You don't want to think of the belly pushing the fingers away. You want to always try and hold that tension flat. You're trying to pull the muscle down towards deeper into the pelvis. The moment it tries to push your fingers away, you've lost the intra-abdominal pressure. So you want to try and think about taking these to a position that you can maintain that drawing down of the belly, that sinking, that scooping. Yes, it's resistance and yes, it's tightening, but it shouldn't be pushing out, and you'll know it when you feel it. So don't worry if you're thinking, I don't think I'm doing that, but I'm not sure. You will know it when you feel it, okay? It's a different feeling. It's a push out, a pressure. Your back wants to go. Everything feels less controlled. So one more time with these, and then bring that leg back down and relax there. Now, before we go into the next set where we are going to do a chest lift, I want to just talk to you about this pelvic position and how, if you're not sure that you're getting this, we can help you with that. So arms now go by your sides, and because you've had your fingers there, you should still be able to feel the markers, the kind of point of contact, those pressure points in that area of belly. So take an inhale breath. On your exhale, squeeze the tummy. Feel like you're pulling your fingers down into the belly, and at the same time you can imprint your lower back. Scoop down into the mat and hold it here. Take another inhale breath. Keep thinking of drawing the belly button down, drawing that area where your fingertips were down into your spine, and then releasing back into a flat back. Now when you release back into your neutral position, you haven't let go of the tummy. You're still holding those connections. So if you were to poke around, the area would still be fairly strong, fairly tight, a bit of resistance. Let's go again. So we take a breath to prepare. We exhale, pull the fingertips, the memory of the fingertips down into the spine. Spine presses down into the floor, pelvis tucks under. Now you should feel that your shoulders are fairly relaxed. If they're not, you can just turn your palms upwards and then release back into your flat back. So we're going inhale to prepare at each end, exhale for the movement, but I really want you to just not move the spine. Don't just think of tucking and squeezing. Think of using that breath, that exhale. Think of drawing down through the area where your fingertips were. When you release back to neutral, don't let go. Hold that tension. One more time. Exhale to imprint. And you should find that that creates a stronger connection with your belly. You should feel like your tummy's, you're more able to access in this position. You've got more going on in the abdominal area, and then release back to neutral. So my tip would be, if you struggle to hold neutral and struggle to hold that connection in your lower abdominals, my tip would be to take your hips 1% to 5% closer to your ribs. So that pelvic tilt we just did is 100%. So if we were just going to take it 5%, it's not really visual to the naked eye, but internally you'll feel much more connection. So if that's useful for you, then you can always do that. Always create just that hint of a tuck. Now take your hands behind your head. When your elbows are in your peripheral vision and you're resting your head down, I would interlink your fingers. I would draw your armpits away from your ears so that you've still got good control over that rib cage, so you can still get the backs of the ribs to the floor. Find that connection again. Take a couple of breaths if you need to reinforce the lower abdominal connection. And then when your next exhale comes, you're going to use it to bring you up into a chest lift. And what you should find is, because all of your effort is in this lower belly connection, suddenly you don't care how high you lift. You don't care what your shoulders don't try and switch on. It's not all about the range. It's not all about the ego and how big it is. It's about holding those connections. So we take an inhale breath. Find 1% tuck if you need it. Exhale up. Use that same breath that you used earlier. Pull the wall of the abdominals down to your spine. Feel that tightening across the front of the tummy. Remember that feeling that it should be pulling away from your fingers, not pushing out. Hold your neutral. Draw your armpits towards your ribs. Keep those elbows in your peripheral vision. Let your head sit heavily into your hands and release down. And you can keep going with these. We're going to do 4 more together. Pelvis stable, tummy on. We go exhale, curl up. Inhale, hold. Elbows in your peripheral vision. Strong belly, pull it down to the spine, hold neutral and release back down. Now remember earlier on we talked about holding that connection on the inhale. This is now where that comes in really useful, because we can exhale to lift and suddenly we can hold the lift on an inhale. We can release all these superficial muscles across the top because they're hard to hold on an inhale. But we know that we can hold this area on an inhale because we've done it. So we're using that to hold us up and release back down. Now, if this is too much for you and you can't hold that top line yet, don't worry. You go up on the exhale and you hold it to control you back down on the inhale. Okay? So you're still working in a strengthening capacity, but this time we're just using that connection where your fingers were. Use those markers to control the release back down. Okay, let's do 1 more together. Inhale, prepare. Exhale up. Now you can either hold at the top or you can hold that inhale and bring yourself back down. Release at the bottom and relax there and take a moment. So relax there. Come on up when you're ready. I hope that has been useful. It's a bit of a practice. It's not a bit, it is a practice. It's a work in progress. The thing with these lower abdominal muscles is they tend to have usually, in most women that I see, they have usually switched off over a period of time. They've usually got a bit lazy. If you've had a pregnancy or a C-section, they have been stretched and cut through. So they are often hard to get hold of. We can talk about pelvic floor and the connection with pelvic floor on another session, but when you take those exhale breaths, if you want more, then get the pelvic floor to engage on that exhale breath as well, and that will help you still even more with holding that stability and holding that strength. So I think in midlife, it's really important. It's really important that we work on the muscle groups that get lazy, because what tends to happen is that the other groups take over, the ones that are a bit stronger take over. We end up overusing our backs, overusing our shoulders, overusing our necks, and injuries start to creep in. And actually, just by targeting some of the smaller muscles that are meant to be doing a job that maybe aren't doing the job anymore, you can actually reduce your risk of injury and rehab injuries by not even going near the shoulders. You know, we don't even need to worry about the shoulders. They will relax when this strengthens. So practice those in your sessions. Practice that as a warm-up. It only needs to be 2 or 3 minutes. But just do those breaths, do a couple of the leg lengthenings, the knee folds, all of those things just to get that area fired up. Because if it's not used to working, it will need a kind of poke to get it going again. And you'll probably need to do that for a little while, and then eventually you'll find you're not using them anymore. You're not doing that anymore, and it's just automatically switching on. That's the plan anyway. So I hope that was useful. I've popped a link. I know there's lots of you on here that were already members, but I've popped a link to the Thrive membership waiting list in the title of this session. So if you're watching on a replay, and if you're not a member and you would like to become a member or know a bit more about it, then just sign up to the waiting list and we will send you some information and some bits and bobs to keep you going. So nice to see you all. Thank you for joining. I will see you all again soon, and let me know any feedback. Take care. Thanks, guys. Bye.